Good morning, everyone. So today we're finishing up our Advent preaching series entitled Lead as You Are Led, which you can find on page 3 of your bulletin. We've looked at the themes of Advent for these last 4 weeks as we've been lighting our candles, how Christ leads us in these virtues, and then how you and I are now tasked to lead others with those virtues. Last week we looked at joy. This week we are diving into peace. So I want to cover 4 questions. What is peace? Why is it important? How does Jesus offer us peace? And how do we lead others now with peace? First, what is peace? Peace in St. Paul's letter to the Galatians is one of the fruits of the Spirit. Things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. When you lead a life centered on God, then the Spirit produces those fruits within you that can now be shared with others. The first reading from today, we heard from the prophet Micah. God says, "You, Bethlehem Ephrathah, too small to be among the clans of Judah, from you shall come forth for me one who is to be a ruler in Israel. You, Bethlehem." What's so special about Bethlehem? King David came from there. It was a place where lots of other kings in his line will draw their origins, and then 1,000 years later, another king will have his birthplace there, the one whose birth that we will celebrate in just a couple of days. So God says, "You, Bethlehem, from you shall come forth a ruler. He shall stand firm and shepherd his flock by the strength of the Lord, and his greatness shall reach to the ends of the earth. He shall be peace." The last line of the first reading, he shall be peace. Not just a peaceful person. He shall be the embodiment of peace itself. And that's why at Christmas Mass we will call him Wonder Counselor, Father Forever, Prince of Peace. Because he is peace itself. True peace comes from God. So before we dive deeper into what peace is, I want to look at what peace is not. At every Mass before we offer each other the sign of peace, the priest repeats the words of Jesus found in Gospel of John. "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give peace to you." Jesus says right here, his peace is different from the peace of the world. How does the world view peace? Well, one way that we view peace is that we blow it up to be something that's a broad definition, way out there, far removed from me. It has nothing to do with me, my family, my parish, or even my hometown. We associate peace with something on the national or international level. As long as there's world peace, no war in the Middle East, no war in Ukraine, no conflicts in the world, then we'll be at peace. Now, we should pray to end all war and violence and conflict. That's important. But so often we're more concerned with peace throughout the other side of the world than peace in our own families and in our own hearts. The peace that God is inviting us to goes so much deeper than a peace that is outside of us. The 17th century philosopher Baruch Spinoza said that peace is not the absence of war. It is a virtue. It's a state of mind, a disposition for benevolence, confidence, justice. Now we're getting warmer as to what true peace is. It's not the absence of something bad, but the presence of something good. It's a state of mind. It's a virtue that you practice over and over again. And so peace has to be something that hits closer to my heart and yours, rather than something that's far away from me. Here's another way that we often look at peace on the individual level. We think that peace means physical comfort, contentment, the absence of discomfort. We think being at peace means like being a pampered poodle in a penthouse in Chicago. I have all the food, all the toys, all the comforts I need. I can just sit, not to have to do anything. I'll be like a poodle. If I have that, then I'll be at peace. If that's your definition of peace, then I guess you're good with being no different than a contented animal. but we are humans. We've been created for so much more than to just be contented animals. Our peace has to be much deeper than that. The deeper peace is the peace of Jesus himself. It's the fruit of Jesus' relationship with his heavenly Father, which then draws us in so that we can share it. It's an inner calm, an equilibrium. It's the result of one who shepherds his flock, in the words of the prophet Micah, who shepherds his flock by the strength of God. Peace is not the absence of something bad. It's the presence of God himself. Peace comes from the one who is peace itself. So now that we have looked at what peace is, why do we need peace? And most specifically, why do we need the peace that comes from God and not just worldly peace? Well, because worldly peace is fleeting. It can easily be ripped away. One nation can say, we're good now, and tomorrow we're at war. One moment you're eating, drinking, scrolling endlessly, totally contented, and then you're totally anxious the next. The peace of the contented poodle just disappears like that. So the peace of God has to be much deeper than any of that. I want to let you in on a little secret, and it is this: I do not enjoy preparing to preach. That may sound a little ironic because I have to do this every day. But I don't enjoy preparing to get up here and preach. Once I get up here, everything is fine. But while I'm preparing, praying over the Sunday readings, it's an agonizing experience because my thinking so often is this: I want to give them the best message they've ever heard, something innovative that will wow them. And then nothing comes to me, and I feel a total lack of peace. And then seemingly at the last minute, normally it's like Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, I hear God saying to me, you don't need to try to impress them. Don't wow them. You got nothing on me, is what God says. Just share with them what I'm sharing with you. And then when I finally open my heart to what God is trying to say to me rather than what I am trying to say, then I can be more at peace with the message. Many studies have been done on Americans to find out whether praying gives them inner peace and frees them from anxiety. And it's no surprise that in many of these studies, after sessions of prayer in a test group, people who prayed reported more peace and optimism and less anxiety than the people who did not pray. Why? Because when our minds are raised up to God and not directed at ourselves or our problems or our wants or our desires and comforts, there's a calm that takes over, because now I'm in the presence of someone much greater, bigger than me. And there's peaceful stillness as a result. Very often, families in the parish will approach me at very difficult times in their lives, especially when they have to make difficult decisions regarding the health of one of their family members. If someone's at the end of their life, often I get those questions. What do we do, Father? Is God okay with this? I'm not at peace with whatever decision. Well, no one is going to be completely comfortable with any difficult decision. But when God is there, when you have the presence of God, then you can be at peace to make any decision because you know God is part of it. That's why we need the peace that comes from God and not just worldly peace or a peace of getting what I want as a pampered poodle. It has to come from God himself. How does Jesus now offer us peace? Here's an image that I think can help us understand this. We just finished hurricane season here in the U.S. 2024 was an above-average year. A couple of these storms made landfall as major hurricanes with winds well over 100 miles an hour. And they caused hundreds of billions of dollars of damage in the southern U.S. When the winds are that fast and they swirl, what do you start to know? What part of the center of the hurricane becomes more and more visible and defined? The eye of the hurricane. I've never been inside of the eye of a hurricane. Maybe some of you have. Based upon videos I've seen, if it's a bright sunny day outside, then you can look up and you can see the sky. You have this wall of clouds, and you can see the top of the hurricane about 20 miles across. And if you're in the middle of it, inside the eye, it's just a quiet, calm, maybe a light breeze. Once you hit the eye wall, though, it blows you away. Life, brothers and sisters, can be like a hurricane. It's chaotic, it's harsh, it's relentless. If you get caught up in the chaos and you're stuck outside the eye, then you'll never be in a place of calm and peace. But as long as you stay inside the eye, there's tranquility. And the eye is the place where you and I, ought to live as Christians. Even though the winds are churning outside, even though they're blowing hundreds of miles an hour, if we're in the eye, even though the world's crazy around us, then we're at a place of peace. Think of the story of Jesus calming the storm on the Sea of Galilee. He's in a boat with all of his disciples, supposedly experienced fishermen who are dealing with unexpected squalls, and the waves are beginning to cover the boat. Now, they should be experienced and ready to take this on and handle it. But with them, there's this visceral state of frenzy and fear about what's happening to them in the midst of this storm on the lake. And what's Jesus doing while everyone else is going nuts? He is asleep. Now, when you and I are asleep, what do we need? We need a comfortable bed, a bunch of pillows, a comfortable temperature, maybe some type of machine to help us to sleep. Now, the waves that are crashing onto Jesus on the boat, does he need a pillow? Does he need a comfortable bed? Does he need the perfect temperature? No, the waves that are crashing onto Jesus on the boat and they're making his disciples go crazy, Jesus sleeps soundly through all of that. What does this show? It shows that the absolute serenity of God dwells in the same place as our frantic distress. God is not far removed from us, far out of the storm. No, he's present in the storm. And that same Jesus who slept calmly through the chaos of the storm is the same Jesus who many years earlier would sleep quietly in a manger when the world is in chaos around him. That Jesus who we're going to welcome in this manger in just a few days, baby Jesus, is in the eye of the hurricane. He's the center of all attention, while on the outside, there is only fear of being thrashed by the wind. But yet Jesus is in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace is what we will sing in a couple of days. Do you and I know what heavenly peace looks like? It's the peace of Jesus. So now we know how Jesus shows us peace. How do we model that peace? I want to zero in on the gospel for today. This young teenage girl has just been visited by an angel with very surprising and shocking news. You are going to have a child. You are a teenager and you are not yet fully married. But not just any child. This child is destined for greatness, and God has chosen you to be a vessel through which he comes physically into the world. Now, although this teenage girl named Mary likely has no idea what's going on, she's probably afraid, and you would expect her to curl up into a ball and be paralyzed with anxiety and fear. But yet, Mary does the exact opposite. From today's gospel, Mary set out in haste to the hill country where she greeted her cousin Elizabeth. Elizabeth, who was expecting her child, John the Baptist. And she would stay there and care for her cousin for the next 3 months until she gave birth. Mary doesn't curl up and collapse into her own fear. No, she expands outward toward others. Her peace is knowing that God is in charge of her life and has now enabled her to share that peace with others around her. Christmas is a time where you and I enjoy the company of our family and friends, but it's also a time when things are hectic, when the winds pick up, Maybe you feel like you're flying through a hurricane. But here's something important. Having God at the center of your life does not prevent the hurricane from coming. The hurricane of life will always be there. But when you're in the eye of the hurricane, when you're in the center, when you know who is in control even when everything else seems to be out of control, then you can find that place of peace, of being with God. Throughout the Mass, we hear the word peace over and over again. We have the sign of peace. We sing, "Grant us peace." But the final words of Mass today, and every Mass, go in peace. It demands our own response to God's peace. Now that you have experienced the peace of Christ, of being in this church and receiving God's peace, now go forth and bring that peace into a world, into families, and into our own hearts that often lack it. May God's peace be with all of you today.